Inside an abandoned forest, we see a shocking scene. An assassin presses a sword against the neck of a beautiful lady, demanding to know her last words. Alina never thought the happiest day of her life would turn into a nightmare. She stares at the man who is obviously about to kill her. She wants to know who sent him, and the assassin gives her a smug look. He decides to grant her dying wish and reveals that the killer is her soon-to-be husband. Alina's purple eyes widen in shock as she questions the man, trying to know her mistake. The assassin says he has no idea, but offers to deliver her last words to the Duke. The girl remains silent, so the man thinks she has nothing to say. He is about to end her life when the princess suddenly grabs his sword with her bare hands. Blood flows down her palm as she asks the killer to deliver her last words. Alina vows to never leave this world until she drags the Duke into hell. She declares with a vicious smile that she will haunt him until death. The killer, after hearing her last words, slashes her neck and wishes her a final goodbye. The princess lies on the floor, bleeding to death. She never thought that her wedding day would also be her last day on Earth. Instead of reciting her wedding vows, all she took was an oath of vengeance. Alina always thought that the world was beautiful. She spent her time playing with animals and running around the forest. She had never stepped outside her father's kingdom, but believed that, just like Claveria, everyone in the world must also be happy. But our heroine was so wrong. Outside the borders of Claveria, the other kingdoms were torn apart by endless wars. Blood flowed like a river as innocent people were killed each day. Alina finally understood that there were countless children and animals who have never known a day of peace. She was upset as she finally realized that she was just ignorant. One day, she overheard the Claverian knights saying that their kingdom was the only peaceful city left. They were afraid that Claveria would also fall into chaos. Alina was filled with a deep fear after hearing those words, afraid that her city would also fall into ruins. Every day, she prayed that they would be spared from destruction and vowed to everything to save her people. So when her father offered her a marriage agreement with Duke Donova to save their kingdom, Alina agreed without the slightest hesitation. The princess thought she could finally have peace, but instead, all she met was a cruel death. In the next scene, we see a pale figure walking down the hall. Because of her unwillingness to die, Alina is reborn as a vengeful ghost. The princess is shocked at the discovery until she remembers her dying wish. It seems some god or demon had heard her vow for vengeance. Alina is given another chance to live and promises to fulfill her vow. She curses the evil Duke, but when she finally sees the man, she is stunned by his gorgeous, delicious body. Alina is shocked to find a tall, handsome man hiding in the Duke's chamber. She is stunned by his beauty, and even her transparent ears turn red. The princess, curious about his identity, suddenly covers her mouth in shock. She believes that this handsome man might be the Duke's lover. The Duke of Denovia had rejected every marriage proposal except hers. He had never been seen with a lover and refused to be alone with women. He was always surrounded by his male knights, and soon rumors began to spread. Everyone believed that the Duke was only interested in men. Alina confirms that the rumors might be true and almost turns into stone. She doesn't blame the Duke because no one could resist such a handsome man. She takes another peek at the handsome stranger, but just then notices his golden eyes that glow like fire. Alina looks terrified because only one man in the entire kingdom has such stunning eyes. She realizes that the handsome stranger is the Duke of Denovia, and also her murderer. Duke Castiel Denovian, the ruler of the vast and wealthy duchy, was the most feared man in the Claveria kingdom and also the greatest warrior. Even though his family was known to produce great warriors, Castiel surpassed them all. He was even more famous than the legendary general Kier Denovian. Everyone, even the king, was terrified of this man. Every time the emperor sent him out of Claveria to battle, he would secretly hope that the man would die, but each time, the Duke would return alive and victorious. To the people of Claveria, the Duke of Denovian was a great hero and a god amongst humans. But to the king, the Duke was the biggest threat to his throne. Castiel, as if aware of the emperor's hatred, refused to attend any palace banquets or official festivals. He only visited the capital when he was about to go to war. Alina had never met the Duke and had only seen him from afar, but even then, his face was always covered by a mask. The noble ladies had claimed that the man's face was disfigured in battle. The princess, after realizing that the rumors are false, feels regret that such an evil man was born with a stunning appearance. She declares with an evil smile that his beauty wouldn't save him from her fury. He might be the most handsome man she has seen, but she vows to end his life with her own hands. Just then, the handsome man suddenly moves closer. He stops right in front of Elena and stares at her with a calm look. The princess' eyes go wide with fear as she wonders if the man can see her. Elena is afraid the Duke can see her, but he suddenly walks right through her. The princess feels a strange shiver, but watching as he dries his hair, she feels relieved that he can't see her ghost form. Castiel is lying in bed with no idea that a vengeful ghost is now watching him. Elena feels some regret because she had always respected the Denovian Duke. She felt unhappy whenever her father and his ministers called him a monster or a threat just because of his overwhelming strength. The princess had never thought he was a villain, and just like the people of Claveria, she regarded him as a great hero and savior. Even when she heard her father offering to marry her off to gain the Duke's support, Elena's feelings never changed. She thought the king and ministers were just mistaken about the Duke. The princess was terrified to marry a stranger, but still clung to the belief that the Duke, who was an honorable man, would treat her with respect, even without any love. She truly believed that the man wasn't the monster her father had warned her about. Now, Elena just regrets her stupid innocence. She stares at the sleeping Duke with anger, questioning his decision to kill her. If he never wanted the marriage proposal, he could have refused or ignored her just like he always did. The girl is filled with hatred, and a short dagger suddenly appears in her right hand. She smirks at the man who is still sleeping, unaware that his life is now in danger. The princess blames the Duke for his malicious plan and is determined to get her revenge. She raises her sword, but just as she is about to stab his chest, the sleeping man suddenly opens his eyes. Elena freezes in shock and watches as the Duke suddenly closes his eyes with an expression of disdain. The princess, confused, thinks she might be hallucinating. She waves her arms in the man's face, but Castiel continues to sleep peacefully. Elena finally concludes that she imagined his reaction. She, who was eager to end the Duke's life, suddenly changes her mind. She doesn't want to give him a quick death and decides to play some tricks on him. The ghost pokes the man's arm with her sword and even blows out his candles. Castiel is disturbed by her antics and frowns as he opens his eyes. Elena is excited to see his frightened face, but instead, the Duke goes right back to sleep. The princess is annoyed by his calm look and loses control, knocking over his candle lamp. Castiel opens his eyes again, looking displeased. The man calmly walks over to pick up his lamp, and then goes right back to bed. Elena is shocked, finally realizing that her tricks can't frighten the Duke. She is convinced that the man must have been haunted by the ghosts of the people he killed, which is why he isn't afraid. She decides to stop playing around and raises the dagger to end his life. Elena is about to pierce his heart when a hand suddenly grabs her weapon. The Duke opens his golden eyes and with a teasing smile greets his new duchess. Elena is surprised to see the Duke awake, but more strange things are about to happen. The princess realizes that she is no longer transparent and that the Duke is touching her. She is still confused when the man suddenly pulls her close. Elena lands on top of his hard chest and is immediately terrified when she touches his firm muscles. She rubs his chest a few more times, still stunned by this sudden change. The princess finds this impossible, and thinking that this might be a dream, decides to test her theory. She suddenly raises a fist and punches the Duke's face. The poor man's face immediately turns red and our girl is surprised. A poor cat witnesses this display of violence and immediately runs away in terror. Meanwhile, Elena covers her mouth in shock as she realizes that she is no longer a ghost. She notices that Castiel is bleeding and now feels very nervous. Suddenly, the Duke licks the blood off his lips, looking like a very steamy demon. Elena focuses on his charming lips and suddenly feels a bit thirsty. She shakes her head, scolding herself for having such dirty thoughts. But her mind is filled with the image of those hot lips again. The princess bites her lips, wondering if she has gone insane. She doesn't understand why the beautiful monster can distract her thoughts. Elena's eyes gleam like a predator as she focuses back on her mission. She raises her sword again, demanding to know what strange tricks the Duke is playing. Castiel isn't frightened by his aggressive wife and even suggests that they introduce themselves properly as a married couple. Elena is now convinced that the man is playing a game. She smirks like a villain as she reminds the Duke that they never got married. The man had murdered her even before she saw his face, so how could they hold a wedding? The princess is secretly convinced that the Duke was the mastermind behind her murder because she had seen the assassin head straight into his palace. Castiel refuses to say a word, and his behavior makes the ghost princess furious. She threatens to slit his throat if he fails to answer her questions. Castiel suddenly grabs the annoyed girl and tosses her on the bed. He caresses her pretty face and announces that he is now her husband. The Duke stares at the shocked princess as he welcomes her into their bedroom. The Duke stares at Elena with a hot, passionate gaze, as he welcomes her into their bedroom. The princess is supposed to resist him, but his touch, golden eyes, and steamy body fill her mind with strange thoughts. She feels like every part of her dead body is suddenly alive again. Alina rejects this strange feeling and the man who caused it. She glares at the Duke, wondering how he could turn a ghost back into their human form. She thinks he might be a monster and refuses to be distracted by him. Alina orders the Duke to get away, but the man moves even closer. He whispers to Elena, saying, "Since it is our wedding night, I will let you do anything you want with me." The princess's eyes go wide at his suggestive words, but the Duke isn't done. Castiel leans against her forehead and tells her to be gentle. The princess, feeling shy, asks what he is talking about. She reminds the Duke that she is a dead woman, but in her mind questions how his touch and eyes can make her feel alive again. Her body is supposed to be recoiling in disgust, but instead, it is now burning hot like fire just because of this man. Castiel doesn't believe that she is dead because the body under him feels warm. He touches her red face, convinced that she is also bothered by his touch. Alina is embarrassed and tries to deny her feelings. The Duke is upset, so he calls her dishonest. Those words fill Alina with anger, causing her to laugh at the Duke's face. She mocks the man because he is the last person to talk about honesty. She wants him to answer her questions, but Castiel says she has to first admit that she fell in love with him at first sight. The princess turns red, once again amazed by the man's shameless behavior. She never thought that the fearsome Duke of Denovia was actually just a pervert. Alina believes the man is playing around with her, which makes her unhappy. She mocks the Duke for overrating himself and says she can only lust after his beauty. Castiel isn't bothered and even admits that he is also interested in her body. Alina almost loses her soul as she questions the Duke's sanity. She is so frightened by his words, she blurts out the rumors about his interest in men. The Duke glares at her and then pinches her delicate chin. He asks her to give him consent, so he can show her his true orientation and remove her doubts. The Duke urges her to agree to his proposal, and Alina can feel herself sinking into his golden eyes. Her body has gone completely out of control. Just as things are about to get steamy, a sudden knock disrupts the atmosphere. Castiel's soldier arrives with a report, and the Duke finally lets her go. Alina once again becomes transparent. The princess doesn't notice, instead thinking that the Duke must not leave. She will never allow him to return to his normal routine and vows to turn his life upside down. The Duke, ignorant of the vengeful ghost behind him, tries to open the door. Alina reaches out with her ghostly fingers, but suddenly freezes in shock. Her hand passes right through the Duke's body. She finally realizes that she's back in her ghost form. Alina switches back to her ghost form, but when she rushes outside, she can't find Castiel. She feels upset, wondering how a human could disappear faster than a ghost. Clenching her fist in anger, she vows to find the annoying Duke and punish him. The princess feels bored, so she drifts around the Duke's estate. Just then, she hears some murmuring voices and decides to take a look. A group of maids are supposed to be working, but are gossiping about the princess. They are eager to see their new duchess, who is also the most beautiful woman in the kingdom. A naughty maid thinks the princess is having fun in the Duke's chamber because her room is still unoccupied. The other girl is excited to see if the rumors about the princess's beauty are true. The oldest maid confirms the rumors, revealing that she has seen the princess in the royal court. Alina's elegance was beyond compare, and her beauty could light up the entire room. She shows her disdain for the cold Duke, and the other maids immediately protest. Castiel might be cold, but he is still their hero. The girls' eyes sparkle with joy, and they all agree that the Duke and his new bride are the perfect match. The oldest maid expresses her doubts because no one has seen the new duchess. Even the maids assigned to the Duke's chamber haven't said a word about her. The other servants believe that the Duke must be keeping their relationship private. Alina stands to the side and listens to their conversation. She suddenly approaches the maids and tries to grab them, but the girls only experience a strange shiver. They can feel a malicious presence floating around them. A certain maid looks around and spots a white shadow. She screams, causing the girls to all run away, yelling about a ghost. Alina watches them leave, feeling a bit confused. Everyone is talking about her marriage, but no one has mentioned her death. She remembers her missing body and floats out of the mansion. Alina is determined to find the evidence, but instead, she sees two handsome men approaching, General Orion and General Dravion, the most famous and strongest men in the whole continent. They are called the pillars of the Denovian army, and the king even wanted to recruit them. Alina knows her father was obsessed with the men because he tried to use her to bring them over to his side. Alina would speak to the generals whenever they visited the palace, but they were both loyal to the Duke. The princess persuaded her father to give up on them, but the king refused. He offered the generals countless lands and riches, but nothing could sway their minds. The jealous king soon began to call them Danovian dogs. Elena watches the men who seem to be having a serious discussion. She decides to eavesdrop, thinking the men are talking about her missing body. Instead, the generals are gossiping about the Duke's injury. Dravion is curious about the attacker, and Orion reveals that it was the Duchess. The culprit overhears them and gives a guilty cough. She is annoyed at the Duke for revealing her violent side to his men. Dravion is almost going crazy because he can't believe the delicate princess could attack the Duke. Orion suggests that it might have been a bite. He is talking about a love bite, but the innocent Dravion thinks the couple were fighting like dogs. Orion expresses his disdain for this single virgin and thinks about getting him a partner. Dravion turns into the Grim Reaper as he reminds his friend that the ladies are afraid of him. He is still convinced that the princess gave the Duke a dog bite. Poor Orion is frustrated and vows to find a woman for his innocent friend before he goes insane. The two men continue to argue as they leave the estate. Elena is listening to their conversation, and the poor girl has gone blank. She can't believe the mighty General Dravion is still a virgin. She is still thinking about his purity when her guardian angel warns her to focus. Elena gets rid of the dirty thoughts and decides to pursue the men. She believes that following them will lead her to the Duke. But when she tries to step outside, she runs into a strange barrier. The girl is confused, but in the next moment, she is suddenly carried away. Elena lands in a dark forest where she died. The princess is amazed because the place is now empty and silent. It almost seems like her murder had never happened. Her carriage is missing, and even the traces of blood are gone. Elena thinks the Duke must have hidden the evidence. She searches around for a clue, believing that Castiel couldn't have erased everything. But even after searching for the whole night, she doesn't find a single evidence. The princess becomes uncertain, convinced that the incident might have happened in her head. Who knows? Everything could just be a nightmare. Elena is trying to brainwash herself, but she soon sees something that makes her frown. A shiny object sparkles in the sun, and when she moves closer, she discovers her own earrings. Our heroine picks it up and soon falls into despair. She had tried to fool herself that everything was a dream, but she knows that her death was real. She had understood her situation from the moment she woke up floating over her carriage. We take a quick flashback to yesterday morning. Our heroine wakes up after the incident and is amazed to see a sea of light. She studies her transparent body, realizing that she is now a spirit. Elena assumes that she might be in heaven or hell, but soon notices the familiar forest. She is still floating above her carriage and has only turned into a ghost. The princess doesn't understand why she is still on Earth. Just then, she hears a loud noise and, looking back, spots her dead knights. Her killer stands in front of them, but soon turns around to leave. Elena panics, knowing she has to follow the man to figure out the truth. Although, he is flying just too fast. After a hard chase, the tired princess finally arrives at the Duke's mansion. She feels heartbroken because a part of her had hoped that the Duke wasn't the mastermind. Yet, her killer had just returned to his estate. Elena feels her little hope fading away. Instead, she is filled with a thirst for vengeance and vows to end the Duke's life. Suddenly, the princess feels a harsh wind behind her back. She turns around only to see a strange woman in white. Elena thinks she might be a ghost, but the lady's energy feels too strange. She panics, thinking it might be a goddess sent to take her away. The girl is unwilling to leave without fulfilling her revenge. The strange woman hears her thoughts and tells the princess that she isn't going to take her away. Elena is relieved and vows never to leave until she has ended the Duke's life. The goddess, staring at her with some pity, hands over a dagger. She explains that the princess can't hurt others in her spirit form unless she uses this sword. Elena is touched by the lady's kindness and expresses her gratitude. She grabs the dagger but feels a weird sensation. The sword seems to be alive and is filled with a strange power. The goddess tells Elena that stabbing the target with this sword will cause an instant death. Our heroine is grateful, but the woman has a warning for her. Elena has to finish her mission before her time on Earth runs out. If she doesn't make it in time, she will be stuck in this world. The princess will become an evil spirit that roams the earth and haunts the living. Elena finally looks scared. The lady laughs at her reaction, wishing her goodbye. Our heroine tries to stop her, but the woman vanishes. The princess is left alone, holding her new weapon. Elena floats through the Duke's mansion, dragging her sword around like a grim reaper. She sneaks into the Duke's study and sees a huge book. Elena is about to read it when the door suddenly opens. The princess panics and rushes to hide behind the desk. Her little angel is confused and points out that a ghost shouldn't be hiding. Elena reminds her that the Duke can see spirits. She also wants to spy on the man because he refuses to answer her questions. This is the only way she can gain more information. But our heroine might have picked the wrong hiding spot because the Duke heads straight to his desk and even sits down. Elena knows he will soon spot her and decides to launch a surprise attack. She jumps out, waving her sword at the Duke. But before she can even get close, the man stops her. Elena is shocked because the Duke didn't even look at her before stopping the attack. He pushes her under the desk, which makes the girl furious. Elena is about to flare up when she hears another voice inside the room. She immediately cowers as she realizes that they are not alone. Zilal feels the evil intent from under the desk and plans to end the killer's life before they harm his boss. The Duke refuses and orders the warrior to leave. Elena is surprised because she has heard about the famous Zilal. Her brother called him the Duke's secret shadow because he always protects Castiel. He even claimed that as long as Zilal was around, no assassin could touch the Duke. Elena always thought her brother was exaggerating, but after feeling the shadow's presence, she is filled with a deep fear. The Duke glares at Zilal, giving him a harsh warning. The shadow feels reluctant, but still, he leaves the room. Elena can finally relax, but the Duke also scolds her. He warns her not to attack him when Zilal is around because the shadow will hurt her before he can stop him. Elena glares at the man, reminding him that she is now a vengeful ghost. Castiel watches her with a hot gaze, causing the princess to panic. She looks away from him but finally realizes her weird position. Elena is kneeling right in front of the Duke's crotch. Her face immediately turns red as she glances at that certain spot. The princess jumps away in fright but forgets about the desk behind her. She is about to split her head open, but Castiel suddenly protects her. Elena is moved by this sweet action until her little angel appears. She whispers that it might be a trick to distract her. Our heroine is convinced and, after glaring at the Duke, calls him a pervert. Castiel points out that she is the one kneeling between his legs with a blushing face. His words make the princess furious, so she punches the annoying man. The Duke stares at her in surprise, wondering if that punch was supposed to do something. Elena feels upset because she had used her full strength and even made sure to hit a fatal spot. She glares at the abnormal monster and decides to change her target. Next time, she will hit him between the legs and make him cry. Castiel isn't bothered because he will make her soothe the pain with her little mouth. He even plays around with her soft lips. The princess looks horrified and calls him a sick pervert. She vows to bite off his organ if he dares to put it in her mouth. Castiel smirks, saying she might like the taste of raw meat. The two's conversation is even dirtier than my smelly socks. Elena is shocked into silence after hearing those naughty words. She almost loses her mind when she finally understands the meaning. Before she can scold the culprit, the door opens as General Orion appears. Elena recognizes his voice and immediately covers her mouth in shock. Orion is one of the few people she really respects. Elena admires his personality because he is truly a man of honor and kindness. She had seen the general play around with women and children. Even the elderly and animals were treated with respect. At first, she thought it was just a facade used to deceive people. But after spending more time with the general, she discovered that he was really a nice man. Even though he had problems with her father, he always treated Elena with kindness and respect. The princess thinks about the handsome man and hides further under the desk. She covers her face in shame because the general treats her like a saint. She can't imagine his disappointment if he sees her kneeling between the Duke's legs. Elena is already dead, so she needs to preserve her pure image in the general's eyes. But of course, a certain man has to ruin her plans. Castiel suddenly grabs her hand, trying to pull her out. The two struggle, causing the princess to bump into the desk. Orion notices the strange sound, but the Duke distracts him with a harsh glare. He demands to know the reason for his visit. The general moves closer and hands over a letter from the king. Meanwhile, Elena covers her face, feeling like she is about to have a heart attack. Orion tells the king not to ignore the letter, so Castiel asks him to hand it over. The Duke shows no expression as he reads the paper, but Orion is feeling curious. Castiel burns the letter and promises to explain during their next meeting. General Orion asks about the princess because she hasn't left the room since she arrived. He thinks that the Duke must be torturing her in bed. The general glares at his silent boss, scolding him for ignoring his advice. He believes the Duchess is the most delicate woman in the world, so she must be treated with gentle care. Castiel stops playing with his fingers as he stares at the delicate wild cat hiding under his desk. Orion talks about the princess with glowing eyes as he praises her grace and innocence. Castiel looks at the blushing girl kneeling between his legs and mocks her so-called innocence. Orion keeps making it worse as he even calls the princess pure-minded. The Duke repeats his words, causing the poor girl's face to turn red. General Elkhart believes the princess is an angel who would never try to hurt anyone. The Duke stares at the startled girl who is holding a sharp dagger. He laughs at the princess, causing her to bury her face in shame. General Elkhart finally leaves. Immediately, he steps out. The couple begin to fight again. Elena tries to stab the Duke, but he suddenly grabs the sword with his bare hands. She watches in shock as his blood drips down his palm. Castiel drags the girl into his laps, scolding her violent behavior. Elena laughs like a maniac, reminding him that he turned her into this monstrous killer. She presses the knife against the Duke's neck, demanding to know where he hid her body. Elena is still talking when the man suddenly snatches her sword away. The princess falls into confusion, wondering how he could touch a ghost sword that was meant for her. She orders the Duke to give it back, but the man teases her. He raises the sword out of her reach, causing the girl to become furious. The princess once again punches the man's annoying face. She immediately feels guilty after committing the crime. Elena keeps asking for her sword, but Castiel only pulls her close. He whispers into her ears, saying he might return it if she behaves. Elena threatens to spit on his face if he calls her name again. She reveals that she lost all respect for him the moment he ordered her death. She doesn't care about his status as a hero and only wants her dagger back. Castiel mocks her efforts, saying her little tricks aren't enough to end his life. Her little attacks won't even give him a serious injury. Elena thinks he is trying to scare her, but she has nothing to be afraid of. The Duke says he isn't threatening her, causing the girl to feel confused by his strange words. Castiel says he wants Elena to do better. Our heroine is shocked, but she soon becomes upset. She can tell that Castiel is looking down on her, so she vows to kill him in the end. The Duke isn't frightened by her scary words and even laughs at her boldness. The princess is puzzled, but convinces herself that she imagined that smile. The man pulls her even closer as he reveals that she is one of the few who have ever managed to hurt him. He wants her to try her best because the next time she fails, he is going to punish her. Elena thinks the man is threatening to kill her, so she reminds him that she is already dead. She is going to keep haunting his life, but will only stop if he can prove his innocence. Well, our male lead has a different punishment in mind. He traps her hands behind her back and he reveals that his wife will have a different punishment. Unlike others, his duchess will be punished in bed. Elena's face turns red again as she glares at the Duke. She looks like she is about to scold him, but they are interrupted by a sudden knock. Zilal informs the Duke that he has an urgent meeting and Castiel abandons the princess. Elena is back to her ghost form, but still hasn't forgotten her dagger. She punches the Duke's strong chest, asking him to return her sword. Castiel ignores her and summons his shadow. He wants to know more about the urgent issue. Zilal has no idea that a ghost is floating around and says the second prince of Claveria has arrived at the estate. Elena is excited to hear that her brother is around, and the warrior reveals that the prince also wants to see his sister. Zilal becomes distracted when he notices the blood on his master's wrist. He glares at Elena, frightening the poor girl. Our heroine wonders if the man can see her. He draws out his sword and is ready to attack, but Castiel stops him. He tells the boy to come over and tend his wounds. Zilal says he has to deal with the culprit, but the Duke gives him a stern look. The shadow finally calms down and is forced to obey his master's command. Our heroine can finally breathe, but she is still frightened by Zilal's bloodlust. Castiel asks about the prince, and Zilal reveals that the royal heir arrived with only a female attendant. Elena scolds her brother for his foolish action. She is still eavesdropping when her body suddenly begins to float away. The princess tries to resist because she needs to follow the Duke. She is afraid that Castiel might try to harm her brother. Elena is thinking of a way to snatch the dagger when she sees the Duke placing it on the desk. Our heroine immediately believes that it might be a trap. She thinks the Duke is trying to turn her into human form so he can show her off to her brother. Elena is tempted by the idea, but knows her brother will never believe her if she appears in human form. The princess thinks of a new plan and plans to disappear right in front of his eyes. That way, Arion would believe that she is dead. She knows her brothers have always been protective and is convinced that they will never spare the Duke. The princess is about to pick up the dagger, but she suddenly hesitates. Elena is afraid that the Duke might threaten her brother's life if she exposes the truth. The princess scolds the foolish prince for not bringing enough guards. She thinks her brother's life is more important and plans to get her revenge once the prince leaves the estate. Elena is excited to see her second brother. She rushes forward to hug him, but passes right through his body. She clenches her fists in frustration, but there is nothing she can do. Arion greets the Duke, but Castiel doesn't look pleased to see him. The prince says he wants to visit his sister, but the Duke refuses. Arion is afraid Elena might have fallen ill, but the warlord says she is resting. The prince knows his sister would meet him if she is aware of his visit, but Castiel tells the heir that he had promised not to disturb his wife's rest. He claims that Elena's word is his law, so he can't disobey her command. The two men glare at each other while an invisible Elena worries about her brother. She urges him to back down, and Arion seems to have heard her request. He promises to visit again, and our little ghost can finally breathe. Elena follows her brother out of the Duke's estate, but is once again stopped by the invisible barrier. She watches him leave with a longing, sad look. Meanwhile, the prince's companion is stunned by Castiel's words. She finds him romantic, but doubts that his feelings are genuine. The lady asks for the prince's opinion because she is convinced that the Duke was lying. Arion's red eyes glow in the light as he shows no concern. Elena rushes back to the Duke's study to grab her sword and kisses it like a little lover. She looks around in fear, worried that the little thief Castiel might be around. Our heroine searches the whole mansion but still can't find the Duke. She wonders how a human could disappear faster than a ghost. The princess is filled with suspicions and thinks he might be visiting her hidden body. Elena knows she might go crazy if she doesn't solve this mystery. She begins her mission by drifting around the mansion, trying to find a secret door. Our heroine decides to stop passing through the doors and instead uses her sword to open them. She opens a wooden door, but after walking through the passage, sees another door at the far end. Elena is convinced that she has found some secret. She rushes forward to open the door, but instead, they all lead to an escape route. The ghost is about to die again from frustration. She returns to searching for the Duke and finally finds the annoying man. Castiel is enjoying a nice bath while she has been searching for him like a fool. Elena is so upset, she wishes she could stab the man 1,000 times. She controls her anger because she knows the Duke might have already sensed her presence. Castiel is the man her father feared the most, and even the best assassins couldn't attack him. She has to come up with a brilliant plan and find the Duke's weakness. The princess pretends to stab the Duke, but she just wants him to drop his guard. Castiel quickly grabs her arm and drags her into the water. Elena is convinced that the man isn't human and assumes he might be a witch. She asks the Duke, but the man refuses to say a word. Elena knows he will never respond, so she changes her strategy. Our heroine gives the Duke a seductive look. She runs her fingers over his chest, asking why he had never had a woman. Castiel remains silent, so the princess grabs his neck. She leans over, acting like she is about to kiss his lips. The Duke is still quiet, causing the girl to wonder if he has gone mute. Castiel finally speaks and urges her to keep seducing him. Elena feels embarrassed because the Duke has figured out her plan. She immediately recovers and smirks, calling the man delusional. She says she will never waste her time seducing a man that has no interest in women. Castiel knows he has to clear up this mess or else his wife will keep bringing it up. Elena challenges the Duke, asking him to solve her doubts right now. The warrior is stirred up and touches her hair, urging her to give him a kiss. Our heroine caresses the Duke's face, but suddenly pulls back. She says the man will have to prove himself. Our male lead is amused and reveals that he only wants women who really crave his touch. If Elena can't kiss him, then it means she doesn't truly want him. The Duke dismisses her like a child, telling her to come back when she is ready to play the game. Our heroine is unwilling to give up and says his little test can't frighten her. She scolds Castiel for talking too much, but finally agrees to play his little game. Elena caresses his lips, warning the Duke to prepare himself because she plans to devour him. Secretly, she hopes that he will let down his guard so she can kill him. The two are about to share their first kiss when the Duke's eyes suddenly go wide. He pulls Elena away and we see a flash of blood. Castiel protects the princess as they crash to the floor. He leans over her, but Elena can feel something wet dripping over her face. Her eyes widen in shock when she realizes that the Duke is coughing out blood. Just then, the door slams open as Zilal rushes in. Our heroine is full of fear and knows she has to escape. But when she tries to move away, she discovers that she is back to being a ghost. She doesn't even know when the Duke let her go. Elena glances around and finally sees an assassin who has been killed by her dagger. She stares at the Duke and sees that his blood is already spreading over the waters. Thankfully, Zilal arrives and helps him out. Our male lead is taken back to his room, and the generals are both furious. They question Zilal, who explains that someone opened the secret doors to the escape route. This gave the assassin a chance to sneak in. Dravion is suspicious because only these 4 men know about the secret doors. Zilal thinks another person might be involved. He sensed another presence during the Duke's attack and is certain that they're the one who opened the secret doors. Dravion is really upset and refuses to calm down. He finds it impossible because even a full army couldn't touch a strand of the Duke's hair. He refuses to believe that a single assassin could hurt Castiel. Orion points out that the Duke could have dropped his guard, but Dravion says it is impossible. Castiel won't let down his guard even when he is dead drunk. He can never be caught off guard even if he tries. 2 days have passed since the Duke's attack, but our male lead has only gotten worse. He is still unconscious and his fever keeps rising. Alina floats around as the doctor announces that the Duke's body is failing. He thinks the man might not survive this attack. Alina should be relieved that the Duke is dying, but she feels a bit disappointed. She always thought that he was invincible, so seeing him shivering from the cold makes her upset. Still, she rejoices believing that she caused his death. Since she opened those doors, she is also the one who killed him. Our heroine thinks her mission is fulfilled, but the dying man suddenly announces that he is still alive. Elena nearly dies again from fright when she hears his sudden voice. She finally calms down and tells the Duke to be patient. She believes that Castiel will soon die and feels a little upset that she can't hasten his death. Her little dagger had disappeared after the Duke's incident. Our heroine is still confused because the Duke had saved her life. If they hadn't switched positions, she would have been the one who got hurt. The Duke blames his instinct, causing our heroine to feel a little pain. She seems to be hoping for another response. Elena is now convinced that the Duke's instinct might be his weakness. Castiel sees the ghost floating over his body and suddenly pulls her down. The girl falls to the bed and he immediately cuddles her. Elena tries to break free, but the dying man is still stronger than her. The princess feels his strength and knows he isn't going to die. She tries to threaten him, but soon discovers that he has fallen asleep. Elena wants to escape, but suddenly hesitates. Since the Duke isn't going to die, she has to think of another plan. The next day arrives, and our heroine is finally awake. She sees a handsome man staring at her with his golden eyes. Castiel greets his little wife, but she only responds by asking why he isn't dead. The man is so touched by her heartwarming greeting that he is about to cry. Just then, the door opens and Castiel tries to let Elena go. Instead, the princess pulls him closer and clings to his body. She had endured a hot night within the Duke's burning arms just for this moment. She straddles the warlord as she advises him to stay still. The doctor arrives to treat Castiel's injury, but instead sees a shocking scene. The Duke and his wife are cuddled up in bed. The man's mouth falls open in shock until Elena greets him with a gorgeous smile. The doctor's eyes glow with happiness as he admires the stunning princess. Elena has to urge him to treat the Duke before the healer finally recalls his supposed job. The doctor tries to remove the Duke's bandages, but after many failed attempts, begs the Duke to release the Duchess. Castiel's only response is to pull his little wife even closer. Elena also persuades him to let her go, but calling him her love just makes the Duke more unwilling to release her. He refuses to move a muscle and keeps hugging his Duchess. The doctor watches the two with sparkling eyes, looking like a proud mother. He is surprised to see the Duke clinging to his wife with all his strength. For a second, he even doubts that their lord might have been switched. Elena points out that the Duke is clingy and asks the doctor to proceed with the treatment. The doctor takes off the Duke's bandages, revealing his injury. Elena's eyes widen in shock when she sees the black wound on the Duke's back. She wonders how the man could survive such a deadly poison. Castiel doesn't even flinch as the doctor applies the medicine, causing our heroine to rub his little head. She thinks the man must feel no pain or must be really good at hiding it. The doctor finally leaves, but the couple soon receive another visitor. Orion arrives and is stunned to see the princess. He takes a secret look at her gorgeous face, but soon notices her dirty wedding dress. His eyes reveal his shock, and our heroine finally feels pleased. She had thought her second plan would fail when the doctor refused to glance at her dress. But now that the general has noticed her wedding gown, she finally feels relieved. Her second plan seems to be going well. Elena received a big shock after the Duke's injury. When he fell unconscious, none of his men checked on her or even mentioned her name. She waited for them to summon her to the Duke's side to care for him, so they would realize that the so-called Duchess never existed. But her plans failed because the men never came. The days passed, but no one questioned her absence or even looked for her. It almost seemed like she never existed. Elena even thought that she might have imagined the maids and generals talking about her. Back to the present. Elena urges the general to deliver his urgent news, but the man refuses to say a word. Our heroine kisses her husband's forehead, suggesting that he let her go so he can listen to his men's urgent message. The Duke is stunned by that kiss, and once again, drags his wife over and buries his face in her chest. He glances at the general with a steamy look. asking him to speak. Orion can't hide his stunned look, feeling embarrassed by the couple's intimacy. He finally announces that the Duke and his wife have received a royal summons. They are required to visit the Grand Palace. Orion is stunned by the couple's intimacy, but still reports that they have been summoned to the royal palace. The general leaves and Castiel begs his duchess to cooperate with him. Elena suggests that she might refuse, and the Duke says he will decline the summons. She points out that he will be punished, but Castiel is ready to use his injury as an excuse. Elena reminds him that announcing his injury will expose his weakness to his enemies. The Duke doesn't think it is a bad idea to lure his opponents into his estate and finish them off. The princess mocks his arrogance, reminding him that he was nearly killed by a mere assassin. Castiel becomes upset and tells her it wasn't only the assassin's fault. He tries to chase her away, but Elena grabs him. She says they aren't done talking, but the Duke refuses to speak to her. They have nothing to discuss if she won't accompany him to the royal palace. He asks her to leave, claiming that he needs to rest. Elena hates the way he dismisses her after using her all night as a personal heater. She can tell that the Duke blames her for his injury. The princess reveals that he never wanted to save her and only helped her because of his instinct. Castiel scoffs because he knows that Elena was the one who opened the secret doors. He tells the girl to be grateful that he is injured and can only use her as a personal heater. The Duke had planned a very hard and steamy punishment for her. We can also guess that the punishment will happen in bed. Elena, annoyed by his Duke's dirty words, suddenly pulls his long hair. She warns him not to complain because he deserves to be punished at her hands. Our heroine's heart is beating fast as she glares at the Duke, waiting for him to reveal his hidden monster. Instead, the man is pleased with her fiery attitude and even makes up his mind to provoke her more. Elena stares at Castiel with wide eyes and almost calls him crazy. He is eager to enjoy his wife's fiery attitude, but knows he has to heal first. If he pulls open his wound again, the doctor might just kill him. The Duke tries to push her away, but Elena keeps clinging to him. This time, she wants to get her dagger. Castiel watches her for a moment, then suddenly, he narrows his golden eyes. We can tell that he has an evil plan. The Duke promises to give the girl her dagger if she accompanies him to the royal palace. Elena agrees immediately, but in the next second, the Duke suddenly grabs her waist. Like a big bad wolf, he brings up another set of rules. Elena cannot break physical contact with him, and from now on, she must always remain by his side. Our heroine yells in shock, reminding him that that was never part of the deal. Castiel pretends to be ignorant and carries her off to change her dress. Elena is amazed when the Duke personally offers to change her dress. The man teases her, asking if she feels uncomfortable. Elena, unwilling to back down, says he isn't the first man to undress her. Of course, that is completely false, but the Duke doesn't know and his eyes become deadly. Elena, unaware that she has provoked a large beast, is afraid the Duke might just rip her delicate dress. Castiel promises to be careful, and after playing with her golden blonde hair, suddenly places a few strands in his mouth. He begins his new job of undressing the princess, and they seem to be making progress. Elena finally realizes that the Duke isn't touching her, but she is still in her physical form. She feels confused until she notices her hair placed in his lips. Castiel explains that she will remain solid as long as a part of their body remains in contact. Elena is convinced that the Duke must be some sort of sorcerer who can control her body. She questions him, but the man refuses to say a word. Castiel finally dresses Elena up in a new gown, and the girl is convinced he must have practiced on many women. The Duke claims this is his first time, but Elena doesn't believe him. Castiel removed every button easily, and seems to be more experienced than her best maids. The Duke explains that he is just perfect at everything, but Elena calls him a monster. She points out that all humans make mistakes, so anyone who is completely perfect can only be a monster. The next day, the Duke and his wife head to the king's palace. Elena is enjoying the view from outside, while Castiel admires her beautiful appearance. The princess suddenly looks upset as she glances at the dark forest. She explains to Castiel that this was where she died at his assassin's hands. She also discovered the strange barrier within that forest. At first, she thought the barrier was created to trap her inside his estate. She even thought she couldn't leave the duchy because her body was hidden within his palace. But now that she is with him, she can finally pass through the barrier. Elena wonders if it is because of her ghost form, or because the barrier moves along with the Duke. Castiel still refuses to say a word, causing Elena to lean over. She pulls away his mask, running her hands across his useless lips that refuse to reveal the truth. The Duke grabs her hand and suckles her fingers. He promises to answer all her questions if she behaves properly on this journey. Alina pulls away in disgust, but the man moves even closer. He vows to reveal the truth when they return to the duchy. The procession arrives at an inn and decides to take a break. Castiel is worried that they might not reach another inn before nightfall. Elena tells him that they can sleep in the forest. She points out that they might spend a week on the road because of their slow pace. The Duke says it will be 2 weeks, and Elena panics. She is afraid her time might run out before they even reach the capital. Castiel reveals that there is a shorter route that will only take 5 days, but he thinks the princess is too delicate to handle such a journey. He calls it dangerous, but Elena grabs his hand. She reminds the Duke that she had her throat slit by an assassin and was turned into a ghost. After such a traumatic incident, she can clearly handle a dangerous journey. She mocks Castiel, telling him not to dictate what she can handle. The warriors are having lunch while talking about the princess. Orion doesn't agree to take the shorter route because he thinks the princess is too fragile. Castiel tells them that Elena might look delicate, but she is actually quite stubborn. The general says the Duke is the decision-maker, but our male lead refuses to break his promise to his wife. His subordinates are both shocked by this sudden live confession. Castiel returns to the room to dress his duchess again. Our heroine has discovered an interesting secret. Anytime she returns to her ghost form, her ordinary clothes fall away and her wedding dress reappears. They have to peel it off every time she becomes solid. Alina finds it a bit troublesome, but plans to use this little secret when they arrive at the palace. Castiel reveals that his general doesn't support her idea. The princess refuses to change her mind, so he says his men are worried about her mental well-being. Alina knows Orion treats her like a fragile flower, but she wants to show the man that she has also grown thorns. The Duke is jealous about her close relationship with the general and mistakenly tightens her dress too hard. He only recovers when Elena complains. The warriors are waiting for the couple, but when they finally arrive, the two are still holding hands. The generals are almost blinded by this sight and even feel a bit worried for the princess's delicate fingers. They glance at the adorable couple with their matching clothes, feeling like the two are about to conquer the world. Castiel and Elena share a horse as the procession begins their journey. Elena is stunned when she arrives at the northern border of Claveria. She finally sees the formidable walls that have protected Claveria for generations. Orion approaches Elena and explains that they will cross the border at dawn. He advises the princess to get enough rest at the last stop before they begin the dangerous journey. Our heroine is feeling excited. She had heard about the famous passage that allows the army to reach the capital in just days instead of weeks, but she never knew that the passage was actually an underground tunnel hidden under a mountain. Elena can't believe she is about to leave Claveria for the very first time. She had always dreamt of exploring the other countries and seeing the view with her own eyes. Finally, her wish is about to come true. The group enter into the tunnel and begin to journey through the dark. Castiel can hear his wife's racing heart and assumes that she is scared. He tries to comfort her, but Elena explains that she is just excited. She is complaining about the darkness when the cave is suddenly filled with glowing blue lights. Arya is stunned as she admires the jewels on the tunnel roof. Rhenus is about to spoil the surprise that lays ahead, but a female soldier stops him. She glares at the man and pulls his ear, scolding him for almost ruining the surprise. The soldier begs for forgiveness, causing Elena to laugh at their antics. The three play around while Castiel watches them with a secret look. They resume the journey, but this time, Castiel covers Elena's eyes. It seems our male lead also wants to join the fun. The princess journeys in darkness until they stop at a certain spot. Castiel removes his hand and the girl's eyes widen in shock. The whole tunnel is covered with glowing blue stones. Elena feels like she has been transported to a magical world. She stammers, unable to describe this beauty. Orion notices her amazement and urges her to take a few minutes to look around. Elena is touched by the general's kindness and thanks him with a sweet smile. The jealous Duke quickly grabs his wife's waist, taking her away from the annoying general. The princess rushes to the blue stones, bending down to take a closer look. She has never seen something like this and believes it must be magic. Castiel kneels beside her, amused that she believes in magic. He bursts her bubbles and explains that it isn't magic. He asks Elena to take a closer look at the stones, and our heroine finally sees a fat, huge worm. She has a deep fear for those slimy creatures and almost faints as she clings to Castiel. She is a bit disappointed to find out it isn't magic, but finds it even more incredible. She can't believe that those tiny animals could produce such amazing lights. Elena gives Castiel a gorgeous smile, and the Duke is almost blinded by her beauty. He gives her a lecture about the worms while Elena listens with a seductive look. She is just interested in the worms, but her beauty distracts the Duke. He feels a burning desire and covers his face in frustration. The two continue to talk about the worms until Orion interrupts them. He can't understand the couple's perverted interests. Castiel and Elena freeze in shock as Orion keeps talking about their interest in worms. He urges them to leave their little friends alone and continue their journey. Elena finally rises and apologizes for delaying the group. The group finally leave the tunnel and the bridge closes behind them. Elena is shocked when the men suddenly break into a full speed. They don't care about the cold wind on their faces or the poor horses. The princess is worried that the animals might slip in the ice, but when she looks around, everyone else is prepared to keep up this harsh pace. She only relaxes as they move away from the border. The world finally settles and the cold wind vanishes. Even the ground becomes smooth enough for the horses to travel. They continue to travel, but then the scene suddenly changes. Elena is shocked because it feels like they have stepped into a new world. The princess never thought she would see such a place even in her wildest dreams. The desert is filled with dark clouds and glowing black sand. Castiel calls it the Obsidian Desert, but Elena has never heard about this place. She thinks it is a paradise and imagines how pretty it would look with shining stars. The Duke says the clouds will never change, but Elena doesn't believe him. She truly thinks she has stepped into a world of magic. The group decides to camp in the desert for the night. After the men fall asleep, our heroine sneaks outside to admire the view. She flies through the glowing desert, exploring this new world. Elena is having fun until she sees Castiel watching her. The Duke is reluctant to disturb her fun, but they have to leave immediately. The princess begs to stay for a few minutes because she wants to watch the sunrise. The man refuses, explaining that the clouds will never disappear. Elena is surprised to hear this, but thinks the Duke is lying. They continue their journey, but this time, the men's pace is even faster. It almost feels like they are running away from some terrible monster. Darkness soon arrives, and the men increase their speed. Their tension starts to make the princess feel anxious. Just then, the Duke says they won't reach the safe zone and urges Elena to close her eyes. Our heroine is confused until she sees a strange man chasing them with a huge axe. Castiel slashes the man's neck, and our heroine goes pale with fear. The Claverian knights are ambushed by some strange men. Elena is terrified as the Duke slashes their necks without a second thought. Unable to bear this gory scene, she throws up her last dinner and passes out. Elena dreams about her past conversation with her father. She wanted to follow her brothers to the borders, but the king had refused. He asked why the perfect starflower is only grown in the imperial garden. Elena called it a rare and delicate flower that would struggle and die if it left the palace. The king says Elena is just like this flower because she can't wander outside the palace or else she will also die. The princess can only survive within these walls. Elena wakes up to hear the two men talking about her. The Duke wanted the princess to witness this scene because things will only get worse. Orion still believes that Elena is a fragile flower, but Castiel interrupts him. He tells the general that Elena is not as weak as she looks. Our heroine is surprised because it almost seems like the Duke knows her. She finds it impossible and thinks he is defending her because he knows about her secret. He probably thought that someone who turned into a vengeful ghost after being killed shouldn't be afraid of a mere ambush. Elena knows that the Duke is right. She isn't afraid of seeing dead bodies except they belong to her Claverian knights. The princess blames herself for the ambush and is afraid the guards might have been harmed. The men could have left an hour earlier, but she delayed their journey by playing around in the desert. Castiel assures her that the men are fine and only Renus is injured. She asks about the horses, but he says only 2 are injured. The Duchess insists on seeing the injured warrior, so the Duke carries her over. The men are all shocked when they see the couple approaching. Renus panics when the princess suddenly kneels before him. Elena touches his hands, begging him to take care of his injury. The warrior immediately becomes teary-eyed and even wipes away a few years. He suddenly glows like the sun, promising to do his best. The other soldiers urge Elena not to worry, and the princess calls them Claveria's treasures. The men's mouths drop open as they are all blinded by the princess's stunning beauty. The oldest guard tells her not to praise them because the young men might become reckless and try to show off. The young warriors almost jump him for calling them children, accusing him of ruining their reputation. Elena is amused because she never thought the feared knights could also be adorable. She is happy that the soldiers still have warmth until she remembers one exception. Castiel is the only one who seems different. He is surrounded by so much warmth, yet he remains cold and lonely. Elena asks about the men that attacked them, wondering why they look different from normal humans. Castiel explains that they have been drinking poisoned water. The Litharians had injected a mysterious poison into their water that wouldn't kill the people. Instead, it turns them into madmen, who seek blood and die from sickness a few years later. The men would attack those who weren't poisoned and try to kill them. If they succeed, they would even eat their flesh. Alina thinks about the complicated relationship between the different kingdoms. Claveria is located right at the heart of the continent of Zephyria. The other kingdoms are Heren, Litharia, Vedion, and Arzes. The continent is shaped like a moon, causing Claveria to be surrounded by the other nations. Heren has been at war with Litharia for many years, but it seems they are about to lose the battle. The group are passing through the kingdom of Heron, and Elena is upset to see that the people have been poisoned. She is terrified by the harsh war and is afraid that Claveria might also be harmed. The princess visits the horses in her ghost form and promises to feed them well after they arrive at the royal palace. The next day, our heroine nearly dies again from worry. The men are still traveling at a fast speed, making her afraid that Rennis's injury might reopen. She glances at the soldier and is terrified to see that he looks half dead. Elena begs the Duke to stop, but he refuses to listen. She points out that Rennis is in pain, but the Duke doesn't seem to care. The princess is confused and wonders if the rumors about the Duke's kindness were false. His soldiers always called him a fair leader, but now she doubts those statements. She looks at Rennis again, but the man looks even worse. Elena grits her teeth in anger and begs the Duke to stop. Castiel insists that the man is a knight, and the princess flares up. She points out that he is also human and calls the Duke heartless and selfish. Castiel says such decisions are necessary, but Elena refuses to be a heartless monster. She threatens the Duke, urging him to let the injured rest. Castiel lets go of the princess and suddenly grabs her neck. He reminds her of their little deal and her promise to remain obedient. Elena says she has been obedient but just wants the injured men to rest. The Duke is tired of arguing and finally agrees to her request. The men relax under a tree while Elena hurries to change Rennis's bandage. They set off after the soldier is being treated, and this time, they even slow down the pace. The group reach a crossroad, and Orion suggests that they take a detour. Elena thinks there is another ambush, but the general says the route is safe. Castiel refuses to take a shortcut because it will only delay their journey and make the Duchess more worried. Elena agrees with her husband and tells the general that they can take the main road. Orion finally gives in, but advises the princess to prepare herself for a horrible scene. Elena becomes nervous as she wonders what terrible sight she is about to witness. But when they finally arrive, Elena covers her mouth in horror. Elena had heard about famine and the people ravaged by hunger because of the war. Still, nothing could have prepared her for the sight before her. The princess nearly cries as she sees the skinny men begging for help. She can't bear to see them suffering, so she urges the Duke to stop and help them. But when she glances at Castiel, he looks totally unconcerned, almost as if they are strolling through a park. She understands that the Duke has been hardened by war, but still finds it terrible that he doesn't react to the people's sufferings. Elena begs Castiel to stop and help them, but the man refuses. She grits her teeth, asking if he plans to ignore these people and continue their journey. Well, that is exactly what the Duke wants. He explains to his delicate bride that there is no hope for these people. Giving them food won't change the fact that they are going to die. Instead, it would only prolong their sufferings. He reminds the princess that they aren't here to save or help anyone. Since the men are not Claverian, she can just ignore them. Elena is horrified by his mindset, wondering how he could ignore these people just because they aren't Claverians. She insists on saving every human being who needs help. Castiel mocks her kindness, asking if they have to sacrifice the food of their men just to save these strangers. Elena, feeling frustrated, covers her face in pain. Just then, a warrior announces that the injured horses are lagging behind, so Rennis has volunteered to walk them. Elena glances back and sees the staggering knight who clearly hasn't recovered. The Duke also glances at him but still agrees to the warrior's proposal. Elena looks horrified as she immediately protests. She refuses to leave Rennis behind and orders Castiel to take a break. The Duke raises a hand to stop his men, but while they rest, he drags Elena out into the woods. He shoves her against the tree, warning her to stop disrupting his march whenever she likes. Elena says he was going to leave Rennis behind, accusing him of abandoning his men. The Duke says he would still order his men to leave if he was the one injured and slowing down the march. His men know that they can't sacrifice the safety of everyone just for a few. Elena says this isn't a war, but the Duke interrupts her. He tells the princess that absence of swords doesn't mean they aren't fighting a battle. He warns Elena to stop behaving like a sheltered princess. Our heroine is hurt by his words because she knows he is right. She grew up surrounded by beauty and always thought the whole world was beautiful. She tells the Duke that she might be a sheltered princess, but at least she has empathy for others' sufferings. Castiel might see her as naive, but it is a sign to Elena that she is still human, unlike a certain Duke. Castiel is speechless and only stares at his bride. Elena tells him to leave her behind, insisting on staying with Renus. The Duke is stunned, but she refuses to leave her Claverian knights behind. Castiel points out that she is just a ghost who can't even help them. The princess glares at him with hatred and even punches his chest. She knows she can't save them, but she is unwilling to leave them behind. Elena would rather stand by them till the very end than let any of her people die alone. Instead of looking upset, the Duke is actually pleased with her answer. The princess knows she can't help the knights, but she refuses to let her people die alone. She orders the Duke to leave her behind. Castiel suddenly caresses her cheeks, suggesting that she has forgotten her real mission. He always thought the princess was hell-bent on ending his life. Elena is furious at the man for changing the topic while Renus might be dying. She clenches her fists, vowing to come after the Duke after this journey. No matter how far he runs, she will find him and end his life. Castiel looks unhappy, but Elena doesn't care. She pushes him away and urges him to leave. She knows his men will have no questions even if she doesn't return. The princess has noticed that the Duke's soldiers never question anything about her, even if they find the situation unusual. They must have noticed that Castiel has never let go of her hand during this journey, but none of them dared to ask about it. She is certain that they wouldn't care even if she disappears this time. Castiel returns to the camp and orders the general to cross the border with the others. He says he will walk with the Duchess and follow Renus. Orion and Elena are both surprised to hear this. The general looks frustrated and calls the idea ridiculous. He tries to change Castiel's mind, but the Duke gives him a cold look. Orion apologizes and quickly agrees to his proposal. The warlord warns him not to return no matter how long they take and promises to reach the capital on his own. Elena reminds the Duke that she didn't ask him to stay behind, but Castiel is fully aware. She sees the warriors riding away and watches them with an open mouth. She can't believe they are really leaving their lord behind. Castiel is the pillar of the Denovian army, and without him, the entire army and even the duchy will be destroyed. Yet, his men abandon him without a second thought. They seem to have forgotten that the Duke has no heir and is literally the last of his line. She had thought the general would rather die than leave his lord, but he also obeyed such a ridiculous command. Elena is confused because it makes no sense for them to follow such a strange order. They would only be obedient if they knew the Duke would survive no matter what happens. The princess scolds herself for being surprised when the Duke can change a ghost into a living person. The warriors must know about their lord's special abilities. She returns to her ghost form as they head over to Renus. The soldier protests, but Castiel threatens to carry him on his back if he keeps complaining. Renus trembles, immediately going silent. He even sheds a few tears. The Duke is prepared to leave, but Elena is afraid the man might die here. Just then, she sees someone approaching, and it turns out to be Sir Herond. The warrior has returned to escort the Duke. The group continue their journey while our ghost princess sulks. She is upset because Sir Herond didn't even ask about her. She waited for him to notice her absence, but the man behaved as if she never existed. They had seen her with the Duke before they left, so she wonders why the warrior didn't ask about her. Elena is alarmed as she assumes that the man can see her. Elena tests her theory and floats around the man, waving her hand in his face. Still, the warrior has no reaction. The princess realizes that he can't see her, which makes her even more curious. She floats over to disturb the Duke, but the man turns his face away. She wants to know why the soldiers aren't asking about her, but Castiel refuses to respond. The frustrated princess wonders if she even exists. She keeps yelling at the Duke until he finally agrees that she is real. Elena questions Heron's reaction, and the Duke explains that the man saw her changing into a ghost. His most trusted knights are trained to ignore any strange events they witness and behave like it never happened. Our heroine is shocked, but Castiel says he imposed this rule on them. She is about to ask more questions when Sir Herond announces that Renus's fever is rising. Elena is frightened because she had guessed that this would happen. She knows this high fever might kill Renus if it is ignored. The poor warrior can barely breathe, but Castiel insists they continue until they reach the cypress forest. Heron points out that it is still an hour away, but the Duke orders him to keep moving. Elena is afraid that Renus might die before that time. She floats behind the group and decides to look around for some sort of shelter. She plans to find a spot so they can rest and treat Renus immediately. Our heroine floats away while Castiel watches her leave. She returns a few minutes later and announces that she has found a cabin. She urges the Duke to take a break because Renus might die. Elena has already checked the cabin and its surrounding areas and believes it must be safe. She even promises to stand guard the entire night and patrol the area. The second she sees something strange, she will report to the Duke. The princess begs Castiel, and he finally agrees. The group takes a break while Elena guards the cabin. She has been patrolling for hours but hasn't noticed anything suspicious. The princess has checked everywhere but is afraid she might have missed a blind spot. She knows she has to stay alert because if she misses even the smallest sign of approaching danger, all the soldiers will be at risk. The ghost princess decides to do another round, but while she floats through the forest, she notices something strange. She flies over to take a closer look, but she is stunned by the scene before her. A gorgeous lady with silver eyes and hair approaches. Elena doesn't think she is a ghost, but the girl also doesn't seem human. The princess has never seen such a beautiful woman before. She is afraid that the lady might be dangerous and decides to report to the Duke. But before she can fly away, the lady suddenly speaks to her, asking if she needs help. Our heroine nearly faints when she realizes that the woman can see her. Elena is curious, wondering if the strange lady can also give her a physical form. She doesn't believe that the woman is a human, so she asks about her identity. The mysterious girl says she is a witch, and our heroine's jaw nearly drops. In Claveria, witches are just fictional creatures who aren't supposed to exist. Yet, when the beautiful woman calls herself a witch, Elena immediately believes her. She thinks to herself that if ghosts exist, then witches could also be real. The gorgeous lady is really a powerful witch. She can tell that Elena has other human friends hiding inside the cabin. She advises the group to leave, saying that the poisoned villagers are heading that way. Our heroine is alarmed and rushes back to inform the Duke. She tells Castiel about the strange woman and asks him to leave for the cypress forest. The Duke wants to know if Elena really trusts this mysterious lady. He says the Duchess can decide whether they stay or leave. Our heroine wants to trust the witch's words, but she is afraid that the Duke might call her naive. She decides to stay, saying it might be good for Renus's fever. The princess heads out to patrol the area while Castiel watches her leave. She tries to convince herself that she did the right thing. After all, she can't trust a stranger just because her words sound reliable. Elena believes everything will be fine until she sees a terrifying scene. A crowd of poisoned men are heading over with different weapons. The Duchess rushes back to warn the Duke, blaming herself for ignoring her instincts. She clearly trusted the witch's words, but was afraid that the Duke might call her naive. Elena wonders when she started caring about the man's opinion. She arrives at the cabin but sees Sir Herond and Renus already leaving. They are heading to the safe spot that the witch had described. The Duchess floats down to meet Castiel, who is waiting outside with a sword. She realizes that the man is trying to distract the crowd so his soldiers can escape. She feels a little ashamed and is worried that the Duke won't be able to fight so many men. Castiel plays with his sword and says he wants to make a bet. He is going to clean up the princess's mess and get her out of trouble, but in exchange, she has to give him a reward. The Duke wants his ghost bride to kiss him. Castiel says he wants to make a bet, but he actually just wants to kiss the princess. Elena agrees to the bet, but she has her own condition. If the Duke gets the slightest injury, he will have to answer all her questions. Castiel agrees with a lazy smile, and the bet is settled. Elena leaves the Duke behind and chases after the soldiers. She follows them until she is stopped by the strange barrier. The princess curses the annoying magic but believes the men will be fine. After all, they are already close to the cypress forest that the witch mentioned. The Duchess decides to head back and see how the Duke is faring. She knows the man isn't going to die, but she is still anxious. She has a strange feeling that she shouldn't have left him. Elena had ignored it at first, thinking that she was just worried, but now she realizes that her instincts were warning her not to leave. If the princess had stayed, she might have seen something she wasn't supposed to witness. Well, it seems our heroine's supreme instincts are right again. As she approaches the cabin, she finds the area covered in flames. Elena floats down, shocked to see hundreds of dead bodies. She could almost swear that she only saw a few dozen approaching. The princess hears a loud noise, and when she takes a look, sees Castiel fighting the poisoned men. Our heroine is a bit disappointed because she thought the Duke would become a fearsome beast covered in blood. Instead, Castiel almost looks like a divine being. Our heroine finds it unfair because the Duke still looks so handsome after fighting a harsh battle. She can feel no emotions from him, causing the man to feel like the Grim Reaper himself. Elena finally understands why her father always trembled in fear after hearing Castiel's name. He must have seen this terrifying side of the Duke. The hero approaches his bride and announces that the battle is over. He sits on the dead bodies and calls the princess over. He tells her not to be afraid because he won't force her to give him his reward. Alina doesn't believe that the Duke is uninjured, so Castiel invites her to search him. The princess is filled with a strange emotion. She knows she should be terrified of the Duke, but when he stretches out his hand, she quickly grabs it. She should be afraid of this god of slaughter, but instead she is secretly excited. Castiel knows his bride is unwilling to kiss him, so he settles for a hug. Alina sits on his lap and suddenly decides to tease him. She says she was actually ready to give him a kiss. The princess smirks, wondering if the Duke fell in love with her after ordering her murder. Castiel smiles, asking what she would do if he really fell in love. Alina says she will make the Duke fall harder and then break his heart. She might even stab him with her sword, making sure he dies a second death. The Duke says she could fall for him, which makes Alina amused. She can tell that the Duke is afraid that she might really fall in love with him. He had killed all those people just to frighten her, but Alina isn't scared. She even asks the Duke to show her something more impressive. Castiel suddenly changes the topic, wondering if her smart mouth can do other things besides talking. The princess offers to show him some action by kissing him. She leans against the Duke, who quickly agrees to her suggestion. He even promises to show her something exciting if she kisses him. The two move closer, and then everything ends. Ugh, this is so frustrating. Want to find out what happens next? Comment ghost below for the next part. Until next time, ciao.